The Indian independence movement was a long and tumultuous struggle that took place from the late 19th century until India finally gained its independence from British rule on August 15, 1947. The movement was marked by a variety of strategies and tactics, including non-violent civil disobedience, armed rebellion, political negotiations, and international lobbying. The roots of the Indian independence movement can be traced back to the early 19th century, when the British East India Company began to establish political and economic control over the Indian subcontinent. The company's policies of economic exploitation, religious oppression, and cultural marginalization sparked widespread discontent and resistance among the Indian people. One of the early leaders of the independence movement was Raja Ram Mohan Roy, a social reformer who campaigned for the abolition of practices such as sati, the immolation of widows, and child marriage, and advocated for greater religious tolerance and women's education. The movement gained momentum in the late 19th and early 20th centuries with the rise of several prominent nationalist leaders, including Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, and Bipin Chandra Pal, who advocated for Indian self-rule and rejected British colonialism. In 1919, the British government passed the Rowlatt Act, which gave colonial authorities sweeping powers of arrest and detention without trial, sparking widespread protests and civil unrest across India. This led to the formation of the Indian National Congress, a political party that became the main vehicle for the independence movement. The Indian National Congress organized a series of non-violent protests and civil disobedience campaigns, including the Salt March led by Mahatma Gandhi in 1930, which saw thousands of Indians march to the sea to protest the British monopoly on salt production. These campaigns put increasing pressure on the British government and ultimately led to the passage of the Indian Independence Act in 1947, which granted India its independence. However, the independence movement was also marked by violent uprisings, such as the 1857 Sepoy Rebellion, the 1919 Amritsar Massacre, and the 1942 Quit India movement, which saw widespread strikes and protests that were met with brutal repression by the British authorities. Despite the challenges and setbacks, the Indian independence movement ultimately succeeded in achieving its goal of freeing India from British colonial rule, and remains a powerful symbol of the struggle for freedom and self-determination around the world. The Indian independence movement was not only a struggle against British colonialism, but also against the deep-rooted inequalities and injustices that had long existed within Indian society. The movement was marked by a diversity of voices and perspectives, including those of women, workers, peasants, and marginalized communities, who sought to challenge the dominant hierarchies and structures of power. One of the key figures of the Indian independence movement was Mahatma Gandhi, a political and spiritual leader who emerged as the leading voice of nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience. Gandhi's philosophy of satyagraha, truth force, emphasized the power of peaceful protest and resistance, and inspired millions of Indians to join the struggle for independence. In addition to nonviolent resistance, the Indian independence movement also saw the rise of armed rebellion and militant groups, such as the Indian National Army led by Subhas Chandra Bose, who sought to challenge British rule through military means. While these movements were less successful in achieving their goals, they demonstrated the depth of popular opposition to British rule and the willingness of many Indians to use all available means to achieve their freedom. The Indian independence movement also had significant international dimensions, with Indian nationalists seeking support from allies and sympathizers around the world. Indian students and political activists played a key role in spreading awareness about the struggle for independence and building international networks of solidarity and support. The movement also drew inspiration from other anti-colonial struggles around the world, including in Africa and Southeast Asia. The achievement of Indian independence in 1947 was a momentous event that marked the end of nearly 200 years of British colonial rule. However, it was also marked by the partition of India into two separate nations, India and Pakistan, and the violent displacement and migration of millions of people. The legacy of the independence movement continues to shape Indian society and politics to this day, and remains a source of inspiration for struggles for freedom, justice, and equality around the world. Chuang Ti Ding Duan. Chuang Ti Di Duan. After India gained independence in 1947, the country faced numerous challenges as it sought to establish itself as a democratic and secular nation. The process of nation-building was complicated by deep divisions along linguistic, religious, and ethnic lines, as well as ongoing conflicts with neighboring countries such as Pakistan and China. One of the major challenges faced by the new Indian government was the task of integrating the princely states, which were ruled by local monarchs who had enjoyed varying degrees of autonomy under British colonial rule. The government pursued a policy of peaceful negotiation and persuasion, and ultimately succeeded in convincing most of the princely states to accede to the Indian Union. Another major challenge was the issue of communal violence, which erupted in the aftermath of partition and led to the displacement and deaths of millions of people. The Indian government sought to address these tensions through policies of secularism and tolerance, enshrined in the Constitution of India, which recognized the rights of all citizens regardless of their religion, caste, or ethnicity. The Indian independence movement also had significant cultural and intellectual dimensions, with artists, writers, and thinkers playing a key role in shaping the national consciousness and identity. The movement inspired a rich and diverse array of cultural expressions, including literature, music, film, and visual arts, that continue to shape the cultural landscape of India to this day. The legacy of the Indian independence movement has also had a profound impact on global politics and the history of anti-colonial struggle. The movement inspired and influenced other anti-colonial movements around the world, including in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, and helped to usher in a new era of global politics characterized by the struggle for freedom, justice, and human rights. Overall, the Indian independence movement was a long and complex struggle that spanned generations and encompassed a wide range of strategies and tactics. It was a testament to the resilience and determination of the Indian people, who refused to accept the indignities and injustices of colonial rule and fought tirelessly for their freedom and self-determination. In conclusion, the Indian independence movement was a landmark event in the history of India and the world. It was a long and complex struggle that brought together a diverse array of voices and perspectives, and was marked by a wide range of strategies and tactics, including nonviolent resistance, armed rebellion, and international solidarity. The movement was not only a struggle against British colonialism, but also against the deep-rooted inequalities and injustices that had long existed within Indian society. It challenged the dominant hierarchies and structures of power, and inspired millions of Indians to join the struggle for freedom and self-determination. The legacy of the Indian independence movement continues to shape Indian society and politics to this day, and remains a source of inspiration for struggles for freedom, justice, and equality around the world. It is a reminder of the power of collective action and the enduring human desire for dignity, autonomy, and self-determination.